Picture this: a peaceful Nigerian village nestled among lush green fields. Suddenly, the tranquility is shattered by the sound of gunfire and screams. But what's really behind these attacks? Is it simply a clash over resources, or is there something deeper at play? Farmers flee their homes as armed men on motorcycles storm through, leaving destruction in their wake. We'll uncover the historical roots of this conflict, examine the key events that have shaped it, and explore the far-reaching consequences that continue to impact millions of lives. This isn't a scene from an action movie. It is a stark reality that has plagued Nigeria for years. But you'll also discover stories of resilience, grassroots peace efforts, and the complex web of factors that have turned neighbor against neighbor. For centuries, they coexisted peacefully with farming communities. So, what changed? The conflict between Fulani herdsmen and farmers has become one of Nigeria's most pressing security challenges. The British implemented a system of indirect rule, which favored certain ethnic groups over others. This created lasting tensions and power imbalances that continue to shape Nigerian politics today. At the same time, Nigeria's booming population has led to increased demand for land. The result, a deadly competition for dwindling resources. The newly formed government struggled to manage the diverse needs of its population. In March of that year, over 500 people, mostly women and children, were massacred in Dogo Nahawa, a village in Plateau State. The attack, attributed to Fulani herdsmen, shocked the nation and brought international attention to the conflict. This migration brought them into increasing conflict with settled farming communities. Rapid urbanization and industrialization led to increased competition for land and resources. The proliferation of small arms in the region has made attacks more deadly. Criminal gangs have exploited the chaos, engaging in cattle rustling and kidnapping for ransom. There are also allegations of foreign fighters joining the fray, further complicating the situation. Later that year, a series of attacks in Kaduna State claimed hundreds more lives. The psychological trauma inflicted on survivors will last for generations. These incidents highlighted the government's inability to protect rural communities and fueled growing resentment. Attempts at mediation have often failed due to a lack of trust between the parties involved. In 2017, Benue State passed a law banning open grazing, a move that was met with fierce opposition from Fulani groups. Land reform policies that clarify and protect land rights could help reduce conflicts. However, the scale of the problem often overwhelms these efforts. Reducing Nigeria's dependence on oil and investing in rural development could create alternative livelihoods and reduce pressure on land resources. One thing becomes clear: this is not just a Fulani versus farmer conflict. It's a crisis of governance, climate, and justice. The question is, can Nigeria break this cycle? Grassroots peace initiatives have shown promise in some areas and could be scaled up with proper support. The story of the Fulani herdsmen conflict is far from over, but with understanding, compassion, and decisive action, there's hope that the next chapter could be one of reconciliation and renewal. Other states have followed suit, but these laws have proven difficult to enforce and have sometimes exacerbated tensions. Military interventions have been accused of human rights abuses, further alienating local populations. Only then can Nigeria hope to build a future where all its citizens, regardless of ethnicity or livelihood, can live in peace and prosperity. It has also strained interethnic relations and deepened religious divides in a country already grappling with sectarian tensions. It will determine whether Nigeria can harness its diversity as a strength or whether it will continue to be torn apart by internal divisions. Traditional grazing routes used by Fulani herders began to disappear, replaced by farms and urban developments. The roots of this conflict stretch back to pre-colonial times when the Fulani people first migrated to what is now northern Nigeria. Initially, they lived harmoniously with local farming communities, engaging in mutually beneficial trade. In 2001, a series of clashes in Plateau State left hundreds dead. Addressing the root causes will require a multifaceted approach that goes beyond simply treating it as a security issue. Reforestation efforts could help combat desertification and provide alternative livelihoods for both farmers and herders. This marked the beginning of a new, more violent phase in the conflict. Today, we're diving deep into the complex and often misunderstood world of the Fulani Herdsmen attacks in Nigeria. But first, let's set the stage. The Fulani people are traditionally nomadic herders, moving their cattle across vast stretches of West Africa in search of grazing land. This tragedy prompted nationwide protests and calls for government action. In response, the Nigerian military launched Operation Cat Race, aimed at curbing the violence. However, critics argued that this response was too little, too late. In 2014, Global Terrorism Index reported that Fulani militants had become the fourth deadliest terrorist group in the world. This classification, however, is controversial, with many arguing that it oversimplifies a complex issue. Climate change has pushed the Sahara Desert further south, forcing Fulani herders to move into areas traditionally occupied by farmers. As we delve into this story, you'll hear tales of horrific violence, political manipulation, and environmental crisis. By the end of this video, you'll have a nuanced understanding of one of Africa's most pressing conflicts. And you'll be left with a burning question. Can Nigeria break this cycle of violence, or is it doomed to repeat history? Let's start by turning back the clock to understand how we got here. However, the seeds of conflict were sown during British colonial rule. Fast forward to the 1960s, when Nigeria gained independence. The 1970s and 80s saw a series of droughts hit the Sahel region, pushing Fulani herders further south in search of water and pasture. But it was in the early 2000s that the situation truly began to spiral out of control. The year 2010 saw a dramatic escalation. As we move into the 2010s, the violence continued to spread and intensify. 2016 was a particularly bloody year. In February, an attack on the Agada community in Benue State left over 300 dead. The conflict reached new heights in 2018. On New Year's Day, coordinated attacks in Benue State left 73 people dead. In recent years, the conflict has become increasingly complex. The human cost of this conflict is staggering. Thousands have been killed and millions displaced. Entire communities have been uprooted, their livelihoods destroyed. But the impact goes beyond just human suffering. The conflict has severely disrupted agricultural production in Nigeria's food basket region, contributing to rising food insecurity. The Nigerian government's response to the crisis has been widely criticized as inadequate and sometimes counterproductive. Some states have taken matters into their own hands. International organizations have also attempted to address the crisis. The United Nations has provided humanitarian assistance to affected communities and called for dialogue. As we look to the future, it's clear that there are no easy solutions to this complex crisis. Climate change adaptation strategies are crucial. Nigeria needs to invest in sustainable agriculture and water management to reduce competition for resources. Improved governance is also key. Nigeria must address corruption and strengthen its institutions to ensure equitable access to resources and justice for all communities. Education and dialogue are essential for breaking down stereotypes and building trust between communities. Finally, economic diversification is crucial. As we conclude our deep dive into the Fulani herdsmen attacks in Nigeria, the answer to that question will shape the future of Africa's most populous nation. The path forward is challenging, but not impossible. It requires political will, community engagement, and a commitment to addressing the root causes of the conflict. The world is watching, and the stakes couldn't be higher.